reason.
You disagree with it being physical?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think when I say that it's physical, by the way, I mean to say that there's like evidence for it. I would give evidentiary arguments, which is to say, I don't think that the mind's necessarily physical, but I think that when we look at the impact of physical things and phenomena upon the brain, it seems to affect things that we would consider to be aspects of the mind, like emotional regulations, people's ethics, people's shame levels, people's fears. I just take something like that to mean that there's evidence the mind's physical.
Where if the identity relation between the mind and the brain, the mind and like anything physical is not necessary, then wouldn't it just be the case that the mind is not identical to the brain?
No, that's not what it means, because we're talking about my knowledge, not the actuality. So obviously the actuality is that it either is physical or it's not. What I'm saying is that in coming to the conclusion on that, I think that there's better evidence for it being physical than not. I'm not saying that they're not identical. I'm saying that the evidence points my knowledge in that direction.
Wait, so are you say okay? So you're not saying that there's a possible world in which the mind is not physical? Or not the mind? Yeah, the mind is
No,
not physical.
I'm agnostic to if there's a possible world to which the mind is not physical.
Well,
I'm
well, you can't.
agnostic to the reality of that. What I'm saying is
Well,
that there's an epistemic gap, not a possibility gap. Like I'm not saying it's logically possible they're not identical. I'm saying that epistemically, I don't have all the information.
well, if you're going to be agnostic on, if you're going to be agnostic on the identity relation in one possible world, then why would you even make a claim about the mind being identical to the brain? It seems very hard.
What I'm saying that wait, I don't see what's odd about it. I'm saying that given the evidence
Because
we have,
identity
I'm
relation
led to the conclusion that they're identical. But in the actuality of things, there's still epistemic gaps to where I can't say. I don't know. It's epistemically
Wait,
possible
so are you
that
saying
the
that it's
mind's not material.
epistemically are you simply just saying that
Yeah,
it's
but epistemic possibility. We understand that's not the same as logical possibility, right?
I'm not talking about logical possibility.
Okay, or like it's. I'm just saying, as long as we agree it's confined to its own possibility, there's no contradiction in what I'm saying.
Yeah, so I just understand it that you're talking about epistemic possibility because you referred to epistemic gaps a lot.
Yeah, so what's the issue with what I'm saying? I'm saying there's evidence towards my conclusion, but I'm not 100% epistemically certain in my conclusion. What's the problem with that?
Look, you don't have to be 100% epistemically certain
Hello?
in your conclusion, but again, I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking
Hello?
about is just
Can you
simply
guys hear me?
if it's at least what I'm talking about is simply if it's at least metaphysically
Oh,
possible
hold
that
on. Wait. Hold on. My shit's bugging. Hold on. Just give me 1 second. Okay, sorry, I can hear you again. My fault. My Bluetooth's
yeah.
disconnected.
So I'm
So
not
what's
talking
up?
about I'm not talking about like epistemic certainty or probability. What I want you to get clear on is just that well, in some metaphysically possible world, could it be the case that the mind is not identical to the brain or the mind is non-physical?
I'm agnostic to that. Again, on the grounds of my epistemic uncertainty. That's not to say that
Yeah,
it's logically or metaphysically possible that the mind and brain are distinct, or that the mind is non-physical and the brain is physical. That's just to say, again, epistemically, I'm not certain. Like we agree, that's a whole different realm of possibility.
we're talking about the metaphysical model stuff.
No,
I
I'm
don't
literally
care.
telling you,
Yeah,
I'm agnostic on that question. Like, what's the issue?
look, I don't. Yeah, you can be agnostic on the question. Then that just circles back to what I'm saying earlier: is that if you're agnostic, if you're going to say that you believe, it doesn't even matter like how certain you are in the claim, right? If you at least say that you at least
Uh,
believe in, if you say that you at least believe in the claim, it doesn't matter about like how certain you are. If you say that you at
okay.
least believe in the claim that the
Is
mind
there?
is physical,
Am I?
if it's the case,
Okay, I'll just ask more directly. Am I engaging in some sort of hypocrisy or contradiction when I say I believe there is evidence that the mind and brain are physical, but there are still gaps in my knowledge? It could be the case that it's otherwise. Is there some sort of hypocrisy or contradiction? If so, what is it?
what I'm confused about is just that what does could mean there? What model scope is could referring to?
Yeah, could the modal scope again is some epistemic possibility, some gap in my
Well, you're
knowledge.
referring to epistemic possibility, so it's epistemically possible that the mind is not identical to the brain.
Yes, that's the modal for that term. So is there
so
some contradiction in that?
so you're certain that it's epistemically possible that the mind isn't identical to the brain, but you're not certain that it's metaphysically possible that the mind is not identical to the brain.
Wait, can you repeat that?
I said
Sorry, you cut out a little.
you're certain, or you at least believe that it's epistemically possible for the mind to not be identical to the brain. Well, if it's epistemically possible, and if you at least believe that it's epistemically possible, then what's holding you back from saying that it's metaphysically possible? If based on your knowledge and based on what you know, it's at least possible for the mind not
Yeah.
to be the brain, then what's stopping it from being metaphysically
Wait, to
possible?
be clear, I'm not saying that based on my knowledge it's possible. That's actually a really distinct thing. I'm not saying based on my
Okay,
knowledge
so what
it's
do you think is
possible.
epistemically
Wait, wait,
possible?
wait. Wait.
What do you
I'll
think
explain the
epistemically
distinction
possibility
now.
is?
I'll explain the distinction now. I'll explain the distinction now. I'm not saying based on my knowledge, based on what I know, that it's possible that the mind and brain are not the same. I'm saying based on what I do not know, it's possible. There's
That's
a
still
difference
based
there.
on your knowledge.
Do you see the difference?
But
Wait, do you see
that's
the
still based on
difference?
that's still just based on a general set of your knowledge.
Oh my god,
That's
Force
still
is
just
so
based on a
cold.
general set of your knowledge.
Wait. Can you? I don't want to be rude, bro. Can you speak a little bit more clearly?
Yeah, yeah. That's still based on a general set of your knowledge. So if you're saying that there's a piece of information that is missing from your knowledge that's stopping you from confirming that, that's still just referencing and that's still just based on the fact that there's something about your knowledge that doesn't correspond to
Yeah,
that thing. So we're
yeah,
still
but
talking
the
about knowledge
distinction,
there.
which you're not picking up on, if I say that it's epistemically possible that the brain and mind are distinct because of something within my knowledge, well then, if something's within my knowledge that's telling me that, that means that there's some actual evidence or proof that I have that it might not be as I think it is. But if it's based on something that is outside of my knowledge, or I say, I don't know, wait, if I say that there could be something outside of my knowledge, that means that there could not be evidence, there could not be proof that they're distinct. Those are two very different claims. So I'm not saying that there's any sort of evidence whatsoever that the mind is not identical to the brain. I'm saying I do not have all the facts. Nobody has all the facts of our neurology, of our brain, of the way that our mind interacts with the world. So again, there's always that possibility. But again, there's no hypocrisy there. I'm not saying that there's anything that exists that I can point to that puts my position into question.
Okay, that's fine. I
So
don't know.
what's okay?
Yeah,
So
nah,
then
yes,
So then, is there again? I just want to ask clearly: is there a contradiction with what I'm saying in
look,
regards to that, and me still believing that there's proof that the brain is physical or the mind is physical?
yeah. So earlier I just thought you were referring to a metaphysical possibility, which will always be a contradiction. But since it's clear that you're just referring to epistemic possibility, and you're restricting the epistemic possibility to facts about what you don't know, then there wouldn't be a contradiction, at least
Okay,
metaphysically. So,
okay, good.
what's the specific evidence that the mind is identical to the brain?
Yeah. So the specific evidence we're gonna have to clear up, I guess, definitions or understandings of the mind first. I consider. Oh, holy shit! Stupid fucking bastard. My fault. I'm driving. I consider things like aspects of our psychology, like our emotions, our ethics, our morality. I consider things like our shame levels, our relations to other people. These things to all be aspects of the mind. I think we all would understand these to be what do we call it? Mental states. So I mean, are we in agreement there?
Wait, can you repeat like because I heard the mental states part, but I didn't really hear like the middle part.
Yeah, I was just asking, do you consider psychological phenomena like emotions, ethics, our relation to people, our fears, our dreams, etc., do you consider those to be mental states associated with the mind?
Uh, so yeah, I'd say that they're associated with the mind, but well,
Okay.
like yeah. I'm not sure if you read any of like Descartes, but he basically just makes a distinction between non-central mental properties and central mental properties. So
Well,
I
yeah,
make I think
I just wanted to make sure we were clear that we
yeah,
understood that those are mental faculties, and that therefore the argument would be on my end
yeah.
that we see physical phenomena and physical changes impact these mental phenomena, and I'm of the belief that for you to have a causal relation, right, with mental phenomena, that means that mental phenomena must be physical, because I think the entire basis for causality itself is the physical impacting the physical. That's our entire understanding of causality. So I think that's
Wait,
where the evidence comes from.
are you saying that there's a metaphysical contradiction in saying something non-physical causes the physical?
I wouldn't use words as strongly as a contradiction. Again, this is just evidentiary. But I would say, actually no, wait. Well, let me think it over a little bit. Yeah, I guess I am saying that there's a metaphysical contradiction as far as we know, in something having a causal relationship with something metaphysical or something immaterial. Yeah, I would say that's metaphysical contradiction.
I mean, given this view, it would just be the case that, well, it would just be the case that all causal relations have been physical, meaning that, well, it's only
Yeah,
just going to be the case that, yeah. So it's just been a case that no matter how much time we extend back in history, uh, all causes or all things that have caused each other have been physical. And so that means
as
that
far as we know, yeah.
yeah,
That's do you have
the
an
only things that exist, the only things that have ever existed, um, that are physical, right? Under this
Well,
view.
that's not necessarily true, because again, that assumes that everything takes place within a causal relationship. Look, I'm willing to grant that epistemically it's possible that there are relationships outside of causal relationships. I'm just making the case that look, as far as we know, causal relationships have always been theorized to be purely physical. And therefore, if there are causal relationships between physical forces of our world and our mental faculties, that indicates that our mental faculties are probably physical as well.
Where what can you like give me an example of like some kind of interactive relationship that's not a causal relationship?
That's not what?
I said, can you give me an example of an interactive relationship that's not a causal relationship?
Well, no, that's why I said it's epistemically possible. I'm not saying I know of any. I'm saying again, like I said earlier, like there could be a gap in my knowledge to which there are some I'm not aware of.
Well, it just seems that there just be like a clear contradiction, even like an
Uh,
epistemic model, Scott.
wait, what's the contradiction? I'm
Because it
just
just
practicing
seems that
epistemic humility.
yeah, it just seems that whenever we talk about things interacting with each other, it just seems that anytime we talk about that, we're just referring to it just automatically indicative of causality, right? Because when things interact with each other, they're obviously changing things about each other. They're moving through space or they're moving through time to interact with each other. They're doing all those things,
Uh-huh.
right? So based on our knowledge, even if we're like to grant that we're talking about the epistemic model structure, based on our
Wait,
knowledge and based on
what
what
did
we
I say to contradict that? My
yeah,
fault to
so
interrupt.
based
What
on
did I
our
say to contradict that?
yeah, so based on our knowledge, indicative of our knowledge, it's obviously the case that there are no interactive relations which it's necessarily true that there are no interactive relationships which aren't causal relationships.
Well, I'm still confused. What did I say that's a contradiction? It sounds like you just explained that in our
Because you
knowledge,
said
all relations are
you
causal,
said that it's
which I literally agree. That's what
no
I
no
said before
no,
you said that.
no, because you said that it's epistemically possible for there to be interactive relationships which aren't causal. But what I'm saying is that we're actually seeing that it's epistemically impossible to be the case since we know that just given what we know, um, interactive relationships to occur, things must move through space time.
Well,
They change things about each other. They have to like have some kind of motion in between each other, which again all just seems to
okay,
be indicative of causal
yeah,
properties.
you could have again, like we could talk about like theories of like I don't know metaphorical interaction, right? Which is to say that it's not energies or forces or physical things interacting with each other, but ideas that are predicated upon each other. For example, look, all I'm saying is that there could be some sort of evidence outside of my knowledge that such things exist. I don't really think I'm saying anything super controversial here, but it seems like we agree that as far as our knowledge is considered, interactions and theories of causality are physical, which then begs the question, is it not the case that I did provide evidence in saying that our mental faculties are a part of causal chains and are therefore physical? Yeah, that
Well,
just seems to be evidently true then.
well, I'll just ask you, why is it the case that, because the original claim you made was just that all causal things or all things that engage in causal relationships are physical, right? So why is it the case that,
As far as we know.
yeah, so why is it the case that why is it the case that there's a metaphysical contradiction in something non-physical
Yeah,
causing something physical?
yeah. Well, I just mean to say, what I understand metaphysical contradiction to mean is that something is going against its understood nature, right? So there's some sort of metaphysical contradiction in a grounded animal flying with wings, right? Like that's just not how it is. That's just not how it works. So that's just to say, within our knowledge, in my understanding, the metaphysics of causality is physical, and that therefore to say that it's not physical would be some sort of metaphysical contradiction. Like
Yeah,
that's
I
all I'm
wouldn't even
saying.
say that's a metaphysical contradiction. I
It's
wouldn't
a
say
debate.
I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that a ground animal like a pig flying would be a metaphysical contradiction. I'd say that it might be an analogical contradiction. Though.
Well, that's actually, you know what, you're probably actually right on that. It's probably more appropriate to say nomological. But I think that the underlying definition of metaphysical contradiction, that being something contradicting or going against its perceived nature or essence, I think that's true. That's what I understood the question to be.
going against its perceived nature. So you're simply saying that.
Oh, here's like okay, so a good example might be God doing something evil. If you think that God is all good, that would be a metaphysical contradiction.
Okay, but wouldn't you say that there have to be like an incompatibility in like nature in all possible worlds? Like for example, we might say that flying might be absent from the nature of a pig, but it doesn't seem that flying actually contradicts any essential feature about the pig. Right?
No. I already said you're probably right to say that's more of a nomological or
Oh,
scientific
yeah.
contradiction.
No,
That's why I
but
said that
I'll just give an
it's
example.
probably
Like,
a better example with the God example. But I think we both understand what a metaphysical contradiction
yeah,
is. So I think we understand what I was answering now.
yeah. And so, given that definition, metaphysical contradiction, like where's the metaphysical contradiction with a non-physical thing causing a physical thing?
Yeah, like I said, if our current theories of causality is that it measures relations between physical things, then of course that's going to be exclusionary of it measuring interactions between immaterial things. That's just not what its purpose is according to our theories. So that's where the metaphysical contradiction comes from, at least within our knowledge.
Well, again, that would just seem to be a violation of the laws of physics or the laws of nature, which would just seem to be a non-logical contradiction. I don't see
Wait,
how it.
what's the wait? What did I say? That's a contradiction to the laws of physics. What?
The laws of physics.
Or the laws of nature? I think you said.
Yeah,
What
the
did
laws
I
of
say that was
nature.
a
Yeah, because you
violation of?
said because I'm pretty sure you said something about it just not supposed to it's not supposed to be the way that physical things and non-physical things interact with each other. Right?
Wait, how is it? I'm still confused. How does it violate the laws of nature to say that our theories of causality are to measure the interaction between physical things? Like that's not clear to
No,
me
no,
at all.
I'm saying that. No, I'm saying that what the reason for the contradiction you give seems to actually be a reason for a non-logical contradiction instead of a metaphysical contradiction.
No, I thought we were past that though. That's why I literally said, yeah, the pig example wasn't the best. We came up with a new example
No,
that
no,
I thought
I'm
we
talking
agreed
about
upon.
no, I'm talking about the argument you just gave.
Wait, okay,
I'm saying
I'm
that
not
the argument
understanding
you
what
just
you're
gave
saying.
I said that the argument you just gave doesn't seem to be evidence for a metaphysical contradiction, rather it seems to be evidence for a non-logical contradiction.
Okay, so we agree that metaphysical contradiction is contradicting one's, kind of nature essence, right? Like I thought we agreed on that.
Mm-hmm.
So
So there's an impossibility.
if the nature of our theories of causality is to measure physical interaction, that is therefore exclusionary of measuring metaphysical
I'm
interaction. And so
posing
to
a
say
call.
that causality measures metaphysical interaction would be a metaphysical contradiction. So that it's very, I'm not sure where the confusion
Well,
is.
no, there's many agreed upon um, theories of Aristotelian causality and Thomistic causality and Platonic causality that talk about
Uh,
metaphysical causality and talk about
I'm talking about evidence theories that people like you or I live by consistently and reliably
yeah we
on
have
a
evidence
day-to-day basis.
for the existence of metaphysical Aristotelian causality. Things
So
going
give me
from
an example. Give me an example of predictive power that something like Platonic causality has. What does that predict, and how do we see these predictions manifest in our day-to-day
well,
lives?
well, just like specifically referred to Aristotelian causality, and well, Aristotelian causality actually has a lot of predictive power. Aristotelian causality predicts that potentialities and possibility can just be reduced to the powers of things or, or the concrete existence of things, right?
It can
And
be reduced to
it also predicts how things go from um, having certain properties to not having certain properties or having properties um,
okay, like how?
or not having properties
Yeah,
to
like
having.
I can explain to you how physical theories of causality can explain why my car runs and turns on when I put the key into the ignition. It can explain relations of gravity and why I'll fall at a certain threshold at a certain height. Blah blah blah
But
blah blah.
there's
Like
multiple
that's
problems
all
with that.
explainable. But what is the predictive property where you're like how things potentiality can be measured? Like what specifically is it, and how
Well,
do we see this manifest?
that's the problem with that. Aristotelian causality and some causality of like physics trying to explain two different things. Aristotelian causality trying to explain metaphysical interaction, metaphysical change,
What you're asking, I know they
and
explain two different things.
causality about physics trying to explain physical change and physical
I'm not
interaction.
asking if they explain the same things. I'm asking you, what does
Well,
it
if they're not
explain, and
explaining,
what does it explain? How does it explain it, and how do we see that explanation manifest into predictions we can use in our day-to-day lives? That's what I'm asking.
yeah, but that's the whole point. They explain different things.
I didn't ask you if I know they explain different things. I'm
Yeah,
just
okay, and
asking
if
you,
they
how
explain
is this
different
theory
things,
of causality evidenced in a way that we can use it to make predictions about things in our day-to-day lives in the same way that physical
because
causality theory
yeah,
can?
I already just
Don't
told
choose
you.
before power your fourth.
Yeah, I already just told you that. So, for example, again, Aristotelian causality predicts dispositional properties. It predicts.
Yeah, but how? What does that mean? How do we see this? How do we see this prediction
Yeah.
come to
So,
light?
for
How does
example,
it explain that?
we have things like glass, right? So, glass is just like an inherent dispositional property to be fragile, right? And that
What?
dispositional. What did you say?
You don't think that theories of physical causality explain why glass is fragile?
They might they might explain why glass is fragile in relation to other things or why glass breaks, but they don't explain why glass actually has a dispositional property of being fragile.
Yes, it does. It literally will tell you the molecular structure of glass is what disposes it to be fragile. Because there's some sort of the bond. Sorry, like we could look at the molecular bonds of glass to see that they're not as strong. We can measure that against more strong molecular bonds. This is absolutely explainable in physical theories of causality.
But that
Like when I ask you, so I don't know if you've ever like watched South Park, but in South Park they have, I think it's either in South Park or Gravity Falls, they have an entire like episode dedicated to, well, gravity could be explained through physics, or we could say that there are thousands of tiny invisible gnomes that we can't see that just pull everything on strings, right? So to just like to say that something explains like a common phenomena when our established normal theories already explain that phenomena, explain it better, and explain other things better, like no, it is not satisfactory.
well the molecular bond thing. Well, the molecular bonds explain why glass has the structure it has, but they don't explain why glass actually has dispositional a dispositional property to be fragile. I don't think you know what dispositional property means.
Yes, they do. They have that
They
disposition because
don't.
that's the molecular structure by which they operate. And they have that molecular structure by which they operate because that's the molecular structure which transforms something into glass. Like, is that not a sufficient explanation for why glass is fragile?
Mm. Yo, Forrest, do you think
No,
that?
it would explain why glass is fragile, but it wouldn't explain why glass has the dispositional property to be fragile. It wouldn't explain why glass has the disposition to be fragile.
Because again, that's how that glass is constructed. What do you mean? Like it has that disposition because the things that go into constructing it make it that way. You could have thicker glass, you can make it bulletproof, you can have hardened glass, and we can give the explanation those things exist as they do too. Remember, if physical theories of causality did not explain why glass is fragile, then we wouldn't have the knowledge to reliably make glass not fragile. We first have to operate on why glass is fragile and understand it under physical causality so that we can reliably make hard glass, tempered glass, right?
Mm, mm,
So yeah,
mm.
this is something that we can understand through physical
Well,
causality.
well, well, no, well, no. Again, as I said earlier, it would it would explain the fact why grass. It explain why the fact why grass is fragile, but it wouldn't explain why glass has the disposition to be fragile.
I know, that's the claim.
Yeah, you still haven't like
I
shown me
have,
how
if
it
you
explain why glass has the. No, you just explained to me
okay,
how it would explain. You just showed to me how it would explain why glass is fragile, not why it has a
okay.
disposition to be fragile.
If
Mm,
that's your opinion, I think I've said everything that I need to say on this one. So
Yo, Forrest,
I
yo,
don't really have
Forrest,
anything to add.
yo,
Yo, what's
Forrest.
up?
You think water could be?
What's up?
Do you believe that water is wet?
The water is wet.
What analysis of dispositions are you using?